read the first page and about a quarter of the second page. Page 221 if you're following along in God Lived with Them. There's a picture of Yogananda as a very young man, or maybe not so young. And he, let's see. He met Ramakrishna because everyone said he was a mad Paramahamsa that was, now let me see if I can quote this, a mad Brahmin. He had not the slightest interest in me seeing the mad Brahmin because he was very shy, but he actually did meet him and talked to him for quite a while. He came away from seeing Ramakrishna thinking, this man must be a saint who has seen God. People do not understand that, and therefore they laugh at him. How else can one account for such words of devotion, such divine love, and such ecstasy in the name of God? However, let me watch him closely. The next day, Yogan went straight to Sri Ramakrishna, who was glad to see him. The master recognized him as one of his inner circle and said to him, it's wonderful that we have come to know each other now. You must come often. You have been born into a noble family and possess many characteristics of spiritual greatness. You will advance easily on this path. Jogindranath Roy Chowdhury was born to a well-to-do aristocratic family at Dakshineshwar on 30 March 1861. So he wasn't so young. He was 35 in this picture that's on the opposite page. His father was a pious Brahmin who spent long periods of time in spiritual pursuits. He didn't pay much attention to managing his properties, and as a result, lost most of them. His only hope lay in his eldest and most promising son, Jogan, who might one day be able to shoulder the responsibilities of the whole family. However, Jogan developed a religious tendency very early in life. When he was a child of 5, he would often be overwhelmed with spiritual feelings. In the midst of play, a serious thought would would suddenly possess him, and he would lose all interest in the sport. He would withdraw into a quiet corner and, looking at the sky, ask himself, where am I? Certainly I don't belong here. These are not my playmates. I have other friends and companions. I must have come from one of those stars. But which one? I don't know. And why am I here if I belong to another world? Is this all a dream? Thoughts like these would trouble him, and he would be seized with a longing for familiar regions. As he grew up, however, these boyish imaginations gradually left him. After his sacred thread ceremony, Jogan began to spend more time in meditation and worship. He would get joy from reading the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, and other scriptures. He was fond of listening to kirtan or devotional singing, and to the recitation of the Bhagavata. Sometimes he would help his father pick flowers for worship. It is quite possible that he saw Sri Ramakrishna many times while he was a little boy, because they lived very close to Dakshineshwar. Jogan was sent to a Christian missionary school in Agarpara, a few miles from Dakshineshwar. During his final year of school, he met Sri Ramakrishna and began to visit him daily. He kept his secret from his parents and friends, thinking that it might create problems. This contact with Sri Ramakrishna brought about a great change in his thinking. The attainment of God became the sole purpose of his life. Although he knew that his academic studies would ultimately be of financial value to his family, he could not focus his mind on worldly pursuits. He had learned from the Master that one can realize God only through renunciation of lust and gold. He resolved not to marry. At that time, a Hatha yogi named Narayan was living in a hut near the Panchavati. He was attracting many people's curiosity by showing them the art of neti dauti. Neti means gradually swallowing a long, thin piece of wet cloth and then pulling it out. Dauti means drinking about a gallon of water and throwing it up. This is how Hatha yogis cleanse their systems to prevent disease and keep their bodies fit. After observing the yogi, Jogan felt that lust would not vanish and God could not be realized without practicing these Hatha yoga techniques. One day, Jogan found the Master alone and asked him, "Sir, could you teach me how to conquer lust?" "Chant the name of Hari, the Lord, then it will go," answered the Master. This simple remedy did not convince Jogan. He thought that the Master did not know any practical method and had prescribed something useless. Moreover, he thought, so many people are repeating the name of Hari. Why does lust not vanish in them? The next day, Jogan went straight to the Hatha yogi, and while he sat listening to the yogi, Sri Ramakrishna arrived. The Master took Jogan's hand and asked Jogan to follow him. While they were walking towards his room, the Master said, "Why did you go there? Don't do that. Your mind will only stick to the body if you learn those techniques of Hatha yoga. It will not thirst after God." This is one of the things we have to watch in today's society. Too much emphasis on the body and we forget God. Jogan again doubted Sri Ramakrishna. He thought that the Master had discouraged him from visiting the Hatha yogi to keep him from running away. However, he thought again, why don't I do what he told me to do and see what happens? Okay. Later, Jogan said, thinking thus, I took the name of Hari with a concentrated mind. And, as a matter of fact, shortly afterwards I began to experience the tangible result mentioned by the Master. After his entrance examination, Jogan began to live with Sri Ramakrishna for longer periods of time and to spend more time in meditation. He was, however, aware of his family's hardship. One day he said to his father, "It's useless for me to go to school anymore. I shall try to get a job in an office. With your permission, I will go to my uncle at Kanpur and try to get a job there." His father consented. Jogan left for Kanpur, probably in 1884. He tried for several months to get a job, but did not succeed. So he spent most of his time in prayer and meditation. His absent-mindedness alarmed his uncle, who wrote to Jogan's father, Navin, urging him to arrange for his son's marriage. This is a common way of binding a seeker of God to this mundane world. Navin thought that this would be a wise thing to do, and knowing his son's apathy towards the world, made arrangements for the marriage without telling Jogan lest the boy run away. Navin wrote his brother-in-law to send Jogan home on the pretext of his mother's illness. With an anxious heart, Jogan rushed to Dakshineshwar, but to his great dismay, he found everyone jubilant over his forthcoming marriage. He was terribly upset, and he plainly told his father that he wouldn't marry. Navin tried to persuade him, but the boy remained adamant. Navin was in an awkward position. He'd given his word to the bride's father. It would be utterly disgraceful to withdraw now. At last, Jogan's mother came to him with tearful eyes and implored her son to marry and save his father's reputation. "Even if you are unwilling, marry for my sake, dear," she said. Jogan was soft-hearted and gentle by nature. His mother's passionate appeal undermined his firm resolution. Jogan bowed his head before the decree of fate and married a beautiful daughter of Madhusudan Roy, who lived close to Dakshineshwar. Oh, people usually get married to find happiness. But Jogan's marriage turned out to be full of misery. With all his gentleness, Jogan had another side to his nature, his strong independence. Forced to marry, he rebelled like a caged lion that desperately wants to be free. When Jogan was taken to the bridal chamber immediately after the ceremony, he began to chant God's name, even though the bride's female companions laughed at him. Jogan and his wife never slept in the same bed. Soon after the wedding, he went to visit his wife's home. After supper, he went to the roof, walked there the whole night instead of going to bed. The next morning, he returned home before anyone got up. Later, Swami Yogananda remarked, "If there is anyone amongst us who has conquered lust in all respects, it is Jogan." Sri Ramakrishna mentioned that 6 of his disciples, including Jogan, were Ishwarakodis. An Ishwarakodi is a godlike soul who is eternally free from the bondage of karma and who allows himself to be born simply to do good to humanity. The master also declared that Jogan had been Arjuna, the hero of the Mahabharata, in his previous life. Jogan later described his mental condition. "As soon as I married, the thought came to me that the hope of God realization was now a mockery. Why should I go to the Master, whose very first teaching was the renunciation of lust and gold? I've ruined my life because of the tenderness of my heart. It can't be reversed. The sooner I die, the better for me. I used to visit the Master daily. But after this event, I stopped going to him altogether and spent my days in utter despair and repentance." Well, such news travels fast, especially in India. Sri Ramakrishna heard about Jogan's marriage and was anxious to see him. He sent for him repeatedly, but Jogan didn't come. Everyone said that he had changed since his marriage and that he would not even mention Sri Ramakrishna's name. As Jogan disregarded his repeated summons, the master hit upon a plan. He knew that before Jogan's marriage, a man from the Kali temple had given him a few rupees to buy some articles for him. Jogan had sent the articles to the man through a friend and sent word also that he would soon return the balance of the money. The master therefore sent this message to Jogan: "What sort of man are you? A man gave you money to buy certain articles, and you have neither returned the balance nor even sent word when you will return it." These words touched Jogan's pride, and he was grievously wounded. He thought, "The master considers me to be a cheat, even after such a long association? Well, I'll go there today and somehow put an end to the quarrel, and afterwards I will never again turn my steps toward the Kali temple." Okay. In the afternoon, Jogan went to the Kali temple. He saw from a distance that the master was standing outside his room, as if in ecstasy, with his cloth under his arm. As soon as he saw Jogan, he came forward quickly, saying, "What if you married? Haven't I too been married? What is there to be afraid of in that? You have the grace of this place," meaning himself. "Even 100,000 marriages will be powerless to affect you. If you want to live a family life and realize God at the same time, bring your wife here once. I will make both of you fit for that. And if you want to renounce worldly life and attain God, I'll make that also possible for you. This was not what Yogan expected. He was stupefied. What was this that he had heard? Was it possible? He felt himself suddenly transported from a region of utter despair to one bright with hope. Was this why the Master had accused him, just to make him come to see him? Yes. A dead weight was lifted from his heart, and he breathed freely again. Yogan bowed down to the Master with tearful eyes. Then the Master, taking Yogan's hand, escorted him into his room. When Yogan referred to the payment of the balance of the money, the Master wouldn't even listen. The spiritual relationship between the Master, this sounds kind of tricky, but I mean, to poke his pride to make him come, because he wasn't coming with any kind of invitations or please come see me. So he accused him of something. People's pride makes them do many things. A spiritual relationship between the Master and the disciple was established. Ramakrishna reinforced Yogan's spirit of renunciation, and the cloud of Maya that had been hovering in Yogan's mind disappeared. He began once more to spend time with the Master. Yogan felt a little guilty because of his behavior towards his wife, and he wanted to do something for her. One day he said to the Master, "Sir, you taught me how to overcome lust. Could you do something for my young wife? What will she do the rest of her life?" Ramakrishna replied with assurance, "Don't worry about your wife. Bring her here once, either on Tuesday or Saturday. These days are considered to be auspicious for the worship of the Divine Mother, and the Divine Mother will grant what is right for her." Accordingly, Yogan took his wife to the Master, who accompanied them to the Kali temple. Yogan and his wife bowed down before the Divine Mother. The Master blessed Yogan's wife, touching her head. He then said to Yogan, "You will not have to worry about her anymore." Yogan realized that the Master had taken on the responsibilities of his wife and was relieved him of it forever. Human relationships are very fragile. Even a little clash of self-interest can break them. Yogan was deeply involved in spiritual life. His parents upbraided him for his indifference to the world. One day his mother said, "If you don't care to earn money, why did you marry?" "Didn't I tell you again and again," replied Yogan, "I had no intention of marrying, but I had to give way to your tears." "What do you mean?" exclaimed the mother. "How could you marry unless you had desire to do so?" He stared at her and remained speechless and thought, "Gracious God, I committed the act to please my mother, and now she talks like this. Fie on the world. Sri Ramakrishna is the only person I have met whose words and thoughts are in perfect accordance." This is one of the things they say that we should strive for in our spiritual life, is heart, mind, and speech all one. And that's a very difficult thing, especially if you seek other people's approval or give them too much power over how you feel about yourself. But he felt Ramakrishna was the only person whose words and thoughts were in perfect accordance. After that, he became disgusted with the world and found his only solace in the company of Sri Ramakrishna. He spent his days and sometimes nights in the temple garden. Okay, the next section is in the company of Sri Ramakrishna. Remember, this is a real teacher practices what he preaches. If his speech and action do not coincide, people do not trust him. I think we've seen many examples of that in today's world. Sri Ramakrishna would therefore ask his disciples to test him as money changers test their coins. One evening, Jogan decided to spend the night with the master, with the intention of serving him if needed. Sri Ramakrishna was pleased. After dinner, the master went to bed, and Yogan made his own bed on the floor and slept. Throughout his life, Yogan had been a light sleeper. At midnight, he woke up and found that the master was not in his bed. He first checked the water pot, which the master used for washing, and found it in its proper place. Then he thought that he might be walking outside, but could not find him there. Suddenly, a terrible suspicion gripped his mind. Has the master gone to the Nahabat to be with his wife? Can it be possible that his actions are contrary to his teachings? Determined to find out the truth without delay, Yogan went out of the room and stationed himself near the Nahabat. But while he waited there and watched the door of the Nahabat, he heard the clattering of slippers coming from the side of the Panchavati. Within a few minutes, Sri Ramakrishna appeared in front of Yogan and asked, "Hello, why are you standing here?" Embarrassed, Yogan hung his head in shame for having doubted the master and could not utter a single word. The master understood everything from the expression on his face. Instead of taking offense, Sri Ramakrishna reassured Yogan, "Well, you're quite right. You must examine a sadhu, holy man, by day and by night before believing him." Though forgiven, Yogan could not sleep any more that night. Once Sri Ramakrishna asked Yogan, "What do you think of me?" Yogan replied, "You are neither a householder nor a sannyasin in any exclusive sense." He meant that the master was God, beyond attributes. Ramakrishna was greatly pleased and exclaimed, "What an extraordinary statement you have just made." Sometimes the master would ask his disciples to evaluate him in order to check their level of understanding. Ramakrishna always watched over his disciples' spiritual practices and also their sleeping and eating habits. He approved of eating a heavy meal at lunch, but did not like his disciples to eat large quantities at night, because he considered night the time for sadhana, spiritual practices. One day the master asked Yogan, "What do you eat at night?" "Bread made from 1 pound of flour and 1/2 pound of potato curry," replied Yogan. That's a lot of food. Immediately the master said, "My goodness, I don't need your service. I cannot afford to provide such a large quantity of food every day. You better eat at home before coming here." Yogan began to strictly observe the master's rules regarding eating. He did not even drink water in anyone else's house. One morning, he ate a little breakfast at home and then left for Calcutta with the master. Ramakrishna visited several places, but did not ask Yogan to eat anything, as he knew a strict observance about taking food. However, in the evening at Balaram Basu's house, the master asked Balaram to feed Yogan. The master knew that Yogan had eaten sweets and fruits as prasad at Balaram's on previous occasions. Balaram immediately took Yogan to the dining hall and fed him sumptuously. Even though the master frequently passed in and out of spiritual ecstasy, he was able to keep a vigilant watch on the mental and physical conditions of his disciples. Now, this would be almost impossible for most people, I believe. Most artists and scientists are negligent about personal tidiness and external affairs while absorbed in their work. But it is amazing to see that although Ramakrishna was completely oblivious to his body and surroundings during samadhi, he was careful even about trivial details while on the normal plane. One morning the master left for Balaram's house by carriage with Jogan and Ramlal. When the carriage reached the Dakshineshwar gate, the master asked Yogan, "Did you carry my cloth and towel?" He replied, "I'm carrying your towel, but I forgot the cloth. However, Balaram will be happy to give you a new piece of cloth." The master said indignantly, "Nonsense. People will say, 'What a hapless fellow has come.' It will cause them trouble and they will be embarrassed. Stop the carriage. Go and bring the cloth." When Yogan obeyed, the master said, "There is an abundance of everything when a good, fortunate person comes as a guest, whereas when an unlucky, wretched fellow comes, the host finds great difficulty in accommodating him, particularly if he arrives on a day when there's a dearth of necessities in the household." I think everyone has encountered at one time or another that kind of guest who arrives and they've forgotten this and they've forgotten that and they need special care. And it's not that you don't want to do it, it's just that it does cause a great hoo-ha. So there were other things. Ramakrishna also was extremely organized, and everything had to be in its proper place at all times. Everything had to be put away just so, just the way it was when you found it. You returned everything to its place. He even taught the Holy Mother, his wife, when she was very young, how to do all of her household duties, because she was very young when they were married. And he oversaw teaching her all of these things. When people come to the convents and monasteries, they're a little like, "Really? You care that much about this nonsensical stuff?" But it's not so much that as a training of the mind to be precise and to be focused. It was a great education to live with Sri Ramakrishna. His every action or word carried deep meaning. According to the arrangements of the temple management, every day Sri Ramakrishna was to receive a portion of prasad, food that had been offered to the deities. One morning, he found that his share had not been sent to his room. This irregularity disturbed him, so he went to the temple office to inquire about it. The embarrassed temple manager immediately sent the master's portion to his room. Yogan was really surprised at this, for he knew the master did not care much about eating, as he had a very delicate stomach. Moreover, he had never seen the master so upset as he was on that day. After a good deal of reflection, Yogan came to the conclusion that the master, in spite of his great spirituality, could not overcome the petty tendencies of his priestly class. Okay. Meanwhile, Sri Ramakrishna returned to his room and said to Yogan, "Look here. Rani Rashmani has bequeathed her large estate to the service of this temple, so that the offerings may be distributed among devotees and sadhus. That part of the offering which comes to this room is taken only by devotees who come here yearning for God, so the gift of Rani Rashmani is turned to good account. But what use is made of the other portion that goes to the priests of this temple? They sell it in the market, and some even feed their mistresses with it. I fight with the temple officials for the share that comes here, so that Rashmani's objective may at least be partially fulfilled." Thus, Yogan discovered that every act of the master, no matter how trivial it might appear, had great significance, and we're going to stop there today. Anyone have any questions or any comments about Yogananda's self-discipline? Okay, we have some announcements to make. Saturday we will have the gospel reading at 5 o'clock. It'll probably be either, it must be me then. Swami Chetanananda is in Colorado doing a retreat. He'll be back in 2 weeks. On Sunday, the 14th, we're going to have Chandi, the Oratorio, Part 2. Now, I hope all of you heard Part 1, because it was really, I don't know why, I guess I heard part of it at one point, but I was surprised because it's been quite a while, and I was really pleased to see it. It was excellent. And Vijayananda's explanation of what's going on was very good. Then some other thing. On the 20th, which is the next, not this coming Saturday, but a week Saturday, is our Karma Yoga Day, getting ready for Durga Puja. Starts at 9:15 in the convent. Please come. On the 27th, the next Saturday, is Durga Puja, and it will start at 11 a.m. here in the temple. There will be the worship, flower offering, and then lunch down at the convent. And Tuesday the 30th, I'm giving you way far in advance these dates, is the Sunday Puja, which is the most auspicious time of the Chandi, the Divine Mother's war against the demons and Rakshasas, when she is overcoming Mahishasura. And it's a group chanting. Everyone who comes to the temple, we chant aloud Jai Sri Durga for 28 minutes. It starts at 5:42 precisely and ends at 6:30 in the evening, at which time we'll have Vespers after that. So everyone is invited to do that, and if you can't get here, try and set that time aside and say Jai Sri Durga yourself, because it's very, very auspicious to do that. Okay? Well, it's good to see everyone, and we will have a good weekend, have a good week. We'll see you Saturday, maybe. Okay. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat, Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. And we'll continue with Yogananda until we finish that. Okay? Have a good weekend. Have a good weekend, everyone who's here, too. We have Zoom people who are involved.
Thank you.